So you'd like to grow some comfrey now, would you? Now, comfrey is a perennial plant native to Eurasia. It's very, very popular in the permaculture world and people that are interested in organic garden and sort of self-sufficiency homesteading. And the reason for that is rarely, unlike many plants, it has within the plant itself most of the compounds and nutrients which is essential for plant growth. And basically the reason for that is that comfrey has very, very deep tap roots. In fact, comfrey roots can go down past 5 meters. We don't actually really know how deep they go, but we know they go a hell of a lot deeper than trees, for instance. Now, under here in my forest garden, I've got a big walnut tree. Now, walnut trees are notorious for not really being able to grow much around. They seem to have an effect on the ground where they prevent other plants from growing. So if you've got plants that can penetrate so deep, and plants like comfrey will grow quite happily under walnut trees, but they will really generally grow in many, many difficult conditions because of this long taproot. And the roots of this walnut tree here will probably spread a couple of meters, 3 meters, and probably go, you know, a meter deep, whereas this guy will penetrate right past that. And it's really, really useful because what comfrey does is it penetrates that cap layer in the ground and goes down into that deep, deep subsoil, and that's where a lot of the hidden untapped nutrients in the ground are. So what it will do is it will bring up things like potassium, minerals, phosphates, all of the essential things for plant growth, and it will lock it in its foliage. Now what will happen is in early spring the plant will go from a dormant sort of phase to just a couple of leaves and a couple of buds on the ground to a perennial plant, and it will shoot up quite quick. And what you should do is cut that down, and you can use that as a mulch, and then that can just sort of decompose into your surrounding mulch if you've got a permaculture system, or you can make fertilizer with it. You can actually put the leaves of this stuff into a bucket, cram it so it's really, really tight, or a big drum, and then just fill it to the top with water. And in about 6 weeks time you're going to end up with this thick, smelly, horrible black looking liquid, and that's actually a concentrate. You can add a couple of cups of that to a watering can, and that's a great feed during the season. The 3 essential nutrients for plant growth, nitrogen, potassium and phosphates, you know, are all within this plant. So you know, it's actually better than manure if you get this stuff growing. And in the 19th century there was a lot of studies and attempts to try and create mass fertilizer out of this plant, because, you know, obviously the Industrial Revolution, eventually we ended up with synthetic fertilizers made from oil, and we didn't need to do that. But this, if you're ever going to be in a situation where you can't rely on the grid, this is actually a must-have plant. And what I really find useful about this plant as well is its attraction for pollination insects. When I did the video about the polytunnel, I just had a lot of trouble getting pollinators into the polytunnel, even when I left the door open all day. So I planted one of these at the doorway of the polytunnel, and bees just find this. Even if you look around all the other flowers in your garden, there's no bees. There'll always be bees near this plant. So it's really, really good for that, a really good pollinator. And you know, it will just grow anywhere. I mean, it's pretty much in full shade here. So, you know, it's just a great one to have. You're not really going to go wrong with it. And I actually think it's quite a beautiful looking plant. If you continually chop this, you can get just a reoccurring fresh foliage. And in some parts of the summer, especially when you get to sort of August, we're in July now, it becomes a bit, you know, everything gets a bit leggy. So, you know, the idea, you can cut this down. Actually, this young whippy foliage, I'm actually standing on or crouching on top of the stuff that fallen over. I should have cut it off and put it in the compost heap like I do every year. So, you know, you can compost it, but this is what you can keep cutting it, and you could get about 3 new lots of it every year. So again, if you're trying to establish a forest garden or something like that, great plant for that reason as well. You know, because it is so deep rooted, if you want to get rid of it, it is doable, but you know, you've got to be prepared to dig down a little way and make sure you get it way off below the soil level, and sometimes it will come back a couple of times, but you can get rid of it. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I find it such a useful plant. Most of the time it's grown in such a difficult position, or you grow it in a difficult position, that it's going to do well, and you're better off having something there that's alive than just bare soil anyway. But you know, once you've got them established, they can live for 20 years. They're actually really easy to propagate. These, what you do is you just take some root nodes around the bottom. They'll have this sort of like little thick roots where they kind of spread, and you can just cut them out and just do root divisions and just propagate them on. They do self-seed quite a bit as well, so it's just something you want to keep an eye on. But if you are into permaculture or forest gardening, it's just a must-have really. But I would always say everyone should have a little bit of it. You should always try and get to a point in your gardening where you're recycling your own nutrients on site and creating your own fertility. The more stuff you've got to bring in, you know, that's not sustainable. And in the end, we all have to become more sustainable. And you know, it's quite a good looking plant, and you get the bees as well. Now they do say that this has been used medicinally for broken bones and sprains. They said that you can, generally people would say that in the Middle Ages and things, you can wrap it up around the sprain or broken, it will help heal quicker. I don't know if that's absolutely true. There's a lot of people that were saying that you can eat the plant. However, there was a lot of research done on that, and they reckon that a lot of the scientists say that it has got compounds in it which can damage your liver. So I wouldn't personally eat it, but you know, for the reasons I've explained, it is very beneficial to have around. I would certainly give it a go. Just a quick note though, on this particular plant of comfrey I've got in the woodland garden, we seem to get a lot of deer coming through here, and they will usually just take the tops off some of the plants, which I find at first thought was quite strange living in a rural area, because I thought they'd just annihilate everything. They sort of take the young leaves, and what I've noticed is they seem to chew the top of one particular comfrey plant. They don't seem to go, there's a couple taken from over there as well. And I just wanted to raise the point on that the hairs of the plant and the sap can actually irritate the skin. So I mean, I haven't had a massive problem with it, but if you're going to cut this, think about that. On an edible level, I mean, I don't know what good or bad it does to the deer, but they seem to keep coming back and having their own little cut and come again crop out of it. But just another thing for you to think about there. You know, it's certainly good as a compost activator, a mineral accumulator, pollinator. Especially good if you've got somewhere where you haven't got many bees in a polytunnel or space you need more pollination. Have some of this nearby, you shouldn't go wrong. So there you have it, comfrey. Not exactly an edible, but it can give you a lot of benefits if you're trying to grow a garden with a lot of edibles. Great for the bees, little bee there, see I told you I wouldn't let you down. I would certainly get out there and give it a go.